Hey besties, welcome back to a new video. I've got a new microphone. Woo! Picked it up in the Black Friday sale. Black Friday is only a good deal if you're looking for something. And as you all know, my microphone troubles, I've been looking for something. It's the OSA microphone. Comes with 2 parts, tells you when it's out of battery, and more importantly, works well. So that's exciting. I hope the sound quality improves for you here. And if you're over on Patreon, where, by the way, I had a few messages recently of people being like, I didn't know you had a Patreon. I make weekly audio newsletters for £2 a month. And then Tom and I do a monthly hour-long podcast where we talk about books, pop culture, things that are on our mind. We talked about friendship hoarding last month. We speak about politics, the climate crisis. Tom chimes in on his 2 cents with his expertise about things like that relate to his work. So it's a good time. If you want to join, the link is always down below. I so appreciate it. What are we doing today? We're going out for breakfast to celebrate. Well, Tom's had some good news in his life recently, so we're going to celebrate that. And then I'm going to celebrate surviving the hellhole of my hospital experience last week. So I'm looking forward to sitting in the local cafe, getting pancakes, relaxing, knitting. It's such a calming space, and we also go early in the morning, so we're normally the only other people in there. Sometimes a sleeping baby, but that will be really good. And then I sent Tom last night to Kelly's expat shop, which we never go to. If you live in a different country to the country you grew up in, you obviously, I think, would have the experience of like missing food from home or not being able to get the same ingredients you're used to and stuff like that. We're lucky, obviously, we live fairly close to the UK and we have a lot of visitors. My mum comes multiple times a year, friends come, and then we have a network of people who are also coming and going. So, everyone's always asking in the group chat, who needs Yorkshire tea bags? Does anyone need Robinson squash? Blah, blah, blah. I think I said, if I didn't show it on here, I showed it on Instagram. My mum came recently with 35 Robinson's like concentrate capsules, which are basically like Robinson squash, but they're like little ones that you squeeze in. And me and our other English friends had a field day, because when I tell my mum I like something, please tell me if your mum does this, she will fill the cupboards. Once when I was backpacking, I was meeting her in Singapore after like 6-7 months away, and she turned up with 9 jars of Marmite. 9. In what world? How many jars of Marmite have you even ever used in a year that would possess a woman to think I needed 9 jars? But the gesture was very sweet. She is a big gift giver as her love language, and that includes food. So we're stocked up on squash. But anyway, the point is, we never go to the expat shop in Amsterdam because we always felt like if we opened that door just an inch, we would then become like fiends for it, which is fine if you're a fiend for your local expat shop, but more just from a cost perspective, we're like, we don't want to start getting used to spending €5 on Robinson squash because that's not in the budget. So we've never been before. And then last Christmas, I love to bake gingerbread. It's my favorite Christmas cookie of all time. Soft, chewy, delicious, perfect. Last year I remember baking them and I couldn't find molasses for the life of me. I was like asking people in the supermarket, in the organic shop, and they were like, I don't really know what you mean. And I was like, okay, great. So I baked them instead with syrup, which is like this dark syrup that they put on pancakes, which is quite similar to molasses, but not really so much in consistency. I just feel like my gingerbread didn't slap like it did before. So I was on Reddit yesterday looking, okay, where can I buy molasses? And everyone was like, Kelly's expat shop. So I sent Tom to buy a jar of molasses that cost me the sweet price of €7. Can you believe it? It is grandma's after all. Also, what am I going to do with 12 fluid ounces of molasses? The expat shop also is not just British. I think it also has a lot of American stuff. This looks pretty American to me. Yeah, cool. Made in New Jersey. So I sent him to get that so I can bake gingerbread, which hopefully you'll see. I'm going to do a new recipe this year that have like a chai spiced white chocolate in the middle. They look amazing. What else is happening? We're hosting a little film night with some friends. We're going to watch Carol later in the week. And then I want to watch The Grinch, but I'll probably watch that while I bake Christmas cookies. Although I have been trying this new crazy thing, guys. Hold on to your horses. It's called doing one thing at a time. Or I think I mentioned this in my last vlog, not necessarily even doing one thing at a time, but just doing something without a secondary distraction. For example, I normally cook and watch YouTube, or I cook and listen to a podcast. And what about if I just cook? And what about if I just bake, or I just put away the laundry? And think and reminisce and listen to music, I think. I listened to a lot of music last week when I couldn't read anything else, and I forget how much I love music. Also written about this before. When I first got sick, I stopped listening to music for like 3 years because I had such bad noise sensitivity and everything hurt, and it felt so jarring. I could really pin down specific noises in songs that just honestly felt like someone was punching my brain. It was so horrible. And then also being with Tom, he is a music nut, like very, very, very into music, into weird music, into specific music. Like one of his main hobbies is making playlists. So I've kind of defaulted to him being the music person, and without really even noticing. This is definitely when we were a bit younger. He was definitely also a bit more of a music snob, so I couldn't really play my ABBA or stuff because I would feel judged. We've both grown since then. But I think it was in the latter stages of the lockdown that I realized how much music could boost my mood, something that I wasn't really relying on. I was mostly relying on distraction, like through TV and podcasts and YouTube. And I always thought about music as like secondary. I always loved to sing in the car, and then we didn't have a car anymore, so I kind of also lost that aspect of it. I stopped going to live gigs because of COVID, and then I think I've been to one or two since maybe 2023, and I just haven't enjoyed them. But yeah, I think I'm trying to get back to it as well and just find some joy in music and using that as my sensory input instead of it being TV, and especially YouTube. Like, I watch people talk about crap that's just not important or relevant, but I just do it to fill the silence, and I want to stop doing that so much. I think that's Tom back from the gym. Hello. So I want to stop doing that so much, and I think music is a good stepping stone to that because it's still stimulation in a way, but it's not as intense as, or it's not as overwhelming as listening content and doing a task. So when I bake, perhaps I'll listen to some music. That also leads me to talk about, I wanted to share some of my favorite Vlogmases that I'm watching. Vlogmas is so nostalgic to me, especially if you grew up in and were in the 2010s, the Brit Crew, Zoella, those types of people. Vlogmas was like an overwhelming amount of content that I would be watching every single day in December. And I feel like lots of people have stopped making content. I don't watch Zoella anymore, though I know some of my friends still tune into her Vlogmas, which I think is very wholesome. But yeah, I guess less Vlogmases appear on my timeline, but there's a couple I'm watching right now, and I especially want to shout out a channel, Mackenzie's channel. Her username is M3. She is a knitting content creator, fiber artist, hand dyes their own yarn, has a yarn business, lives in Portland, and has a podcast with their close friend Tim called Sibling Energy, which is one of my favorite things I've discovered this year. It's so wholesome, so joyful, so queer, so camp, so perfect in the way it talks about fiber arts and knitting, and it is just like sitting across from friends, and they're my favorite kinds of, especially knitting. I find it quite hard sometimes in the knitting online space to find people who feel like that. To me, there's a very specific style of person and who makes content in quite a formulaic way, which is fine, and I watch some of those bigger creators, but finding people who really have that joy and wholesomeness for knitting and creativity, and even if they make things that I wouldn't make, I just really appreciate their content. And Mackenzie is doing Vlogmas, which is so lovely. She answers like a question at the end. I asked her about her journey working in yarn stores, and she spoke about that, and it's just like really lovely, and really been enjoying that. And that's the main Vlogmas I've been tuning into. I think if I think of any others that come up in my timeline, I'll chat to you about them. But the reason why it's linked to music is because she linked a couple of her playlists that she's been making with her partner, like one for folk music and one for like alternative Christmas music. So I've been listening to those as well. I'm going to drink my cup of tea. Oh, knitting wise, actually, I don't really have any interesting updates because I'm working on a commission that you can't see. It's my first time knitting with black yarn because, as I've said before, I don't wear black. I don't really own black. It's not my colour. Navy blue is my neutral, which I keep meaning to make a reel about. And I just haven't got around to it. But this is the start of a triangle mohair scarf for Susanna, who commissioned me, a lovely author and writer living in France. And I'm knitting that up for them. And my yarn did arrive for bonnets, and I've been a bonnet making machine in the last day or two. So that's all been keeping me busy. Reading wise, same as last week because I didn't really read that much. But if anything new appears, I will let you know. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful, sunny and cold day. And maybe we'll get on to some Christmas wrapping today or tomorrow. I think I want to get ahead because there's not many weekends left before we leave for the UK and then on to Thailand, baby. So I'll speak to you all. Hey friends, it's been a few days, a few rough days of pain, but I'm back. Still looking rough, but I'm feeling a tiny bit better. Had a big cry last night, that always helps. And today I'm finally going to see Wicked with my friend after postponing a few times because I was feeling unwell. First I have a telehealth phone appointment, so I'm going to do that. The weekend was really lovely. We did a lot of cooking, a lot of baking. I made those cookies that were really good, and then I made a potato red pepper hash. It's so good. It's one of my favorite weekend brunchy lunchy type foods. For some reason, like potatoes for lunch on the weekend, like bang on 12 when you're hungry because we have breakfast was croissant, are my favorite. So homely. We listened to music and read our books for the morning, which was really nice. And what else did we do? We had our friend over the other night. We couldn't find Carol on our projector, was not working. So instead we watched Notting Hill, which I couldn't complain about. And Tom has a pretty horrific track record of, he basically hasn't seen anything. And I think you think like, oh, you would have watched that as a kid or a teenager. No, not Tom. So we showed him Notting Hill. And then Tom and I also, because we had the projector out and we were like, okay, it's only 7, we watched Novitiate. No, I'm going to listen to the Google thing one more time. Novitiate, such a hard word to say. Unfortunately, it left Netflix like the day we watched it. So it'd been on my to watch list because, as I've said before, I love films about Catholicism. This follows a young girl in like Midwest or a southern state in America who joins a convent at the same time that the Vatican II policy changes are coming through. Like a new pope comes in and they're trying to reform the church, specifically in regards to the way that nuns are treated. Is less progressive than it sounds, basically. But this follows the story of one young novitiate who's basically your first year and a half in training before you officially give your vows to become a nun for life. And it looks at penance and the way that people of the church were instructed to self-flagellate and injure themselves in order to prove it's it's a story about sin. But there is like a queer love story. It's very painful, though, like big trigger warning for the female sexuality elements are really hard to watch because of the homophobia and all of that that's baked into the organized religion we're looking at. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. The aesthetics, again, beautiful, fascinating, and would recommend. Very quiet but harrowing film. We watched that. And then I don't think I updated you in the last one, but Tom and I have now watched 3. It sounds like all I've done is watch TV, which this is over the span of like the last week and a bit. We've watched the first 3 episodes of Say Nothing on Disney Plus. So this is the dramatization and adaptation of Patrick Radden Keefe's book Say Nothing, which is the story of the Price sisters, who were an integral part of the ever-changing IRA in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. So Patrick Radden Keefe has written and he's one of my favourite non-fiction authors. He's the investigative journalist that I think is like a cut above the rest. I've loved his work for a long time, read Say Nothing when it came out, and really, really enjoyed it. He went on to write Empire of Pain, which lots of people then knew him for. I think a lot of people are now going back to read Say Nothing, which is great. So he wrote a non-fiction investigative journalism study specifically about the Price sisters, who were basically the first big female figures in the IRA. They really changed the way the IRA worked and ran their operations, and the terror attacks in the UK they were all linked to. But it also talks, but Patrick Radden Keefe uses the Belfast interviews, essentially these archival interviews that were recorded post the Friday Agreement, which look at different high-ranking members of the IRA and about the different internal operational struggles for power. I mean, it's incredibly bizarre to watch at the start, and this is obviously Disney Plus or whoever the film house had to do this to protect their own legal backs, but at the start and end of every episode it says Gerry Adams denies any part of being involved in this movement, even though so much of the episodes are about Gerry Adams being this like hotshot young strategist that came in to bolster the IRA at a time where things were flailing. If you know anything about Northern Irish politics now, you know Gerry Adams has been involved in a long time in democratic electoral politics, therefore he can't ever it's just a really odd thing, an odd quirk, I suppose, of the series to watch that every time. But I'm really enjoying it. It's interesting actually, because I wasn't totally in the mood to watch something so harrowing, and I don't watch a lot of harrowing action, anxiety-inducing TV. It's not my favorite. I am the person who looks up the plot lines of something before I watch it, because I need to know how it ends if I'm scared. Luckily, because I've read the book, I know how this ends. But it still was particularly, some scenes I really had to look away from. I found really, really difficult. There's a lot of on-screen violence. There's a lot of blood and gunshots and all those things that you would expect if you're watching a film about an active conflict. But it is, a difficult watch. But I really think the adaptation is so far really well done. But an entirely different experience consumption wise to the book. I don't think you need to do any in any particular order. I mean, I think watching the television show would help you if you don't know anything about the Troubles, but still then I think it would be a bit of a confusing, the way you're just like inserted into the story is confusing, which is the same structure of the book. But I don't think just because you've done one, I don't think you can't do the other. That makes sense. They both stand on their own as two different pieces of media. So that's what I watched. I did also finish the wilding, I loved this. This got better and better and better the further it went on as we moved forward into present day, and we hear about Zoe's relationship with Nemone and the complications. It does touch a lot on this idea of like powerful literary men and what we do with them and how they've behaved themselves, but it doesn't feel so black and white as to like, let's cancel this man kind of storylines, which I think I get fed up of. Sorry, I keep knocking my flowers. I really think this had a very understated tone to it. It did take a darker turn, which I really enjoyed, and it felt very atmospheric, even in London, away from Sicily. And then we head to West Virginia, where we hear more about the history of the mother of the family, and we get a little bit into, essentially feels like a Mennonite group, and the story of her mother's upbringing. There's a few shocking reveals that I didn't see coming that I really enjoyed. It touched a little bit on the opioid crisis, but not again in that really obvious way. I just really enjoyed this, and it was worth the 450 pages, which I don't say very often. So I finished that last night, and then I ended up starting The Trunk by Kim Ryo Ryong. This is translated from the Korean, very interestingly translated by a group called the CoLab, established in Australia by academic students and professionals united by a passion for literature and language, with an experimental approach to translation, learning and collaboration at their forefront. So I think that's really fascinating that it's like a collective translation effort. There's not a single translator's name on this, and I'd like to read more about that collective translation process. So this follows, as you can see, now adapted on Netflix. This is a Korean thriller, literary thriller, I guess. It follows a marriage agency, and we meet this woman who works in the VIP section as the marketing manager, but also as what they call a field wife. So she's sent out on task to have temporary marriages to wealthy, different types of people who require a wife, and they also do husbands, for sort of societal status and purpose, for societal value, essentially. And we follow her. We follow her through that marriage and getting called back to a second husband, and how that kind of turns into something a little darker. So I literally just started this. I think I've read like 20 pages, but I'm excited to have a change of pace, and I think I can finish this before we head to the UK next week, and then I will start afresh with travel. I didn't mean to scare you, but I have had my hair cut, as you can probably tell, back to a bob. Like, I like it. I always leave it too long and then look at myself one day in the mirror and I'm like, oh, what the fuck have I done? Why does my hair look ratty? And then I remember, oh yeah, there's 1.5 inches that needs to go. So I also just aggressively scratch my nose, which is why that looks red. So yes, chop my hair back into a bob, ready for holiday, nice and light and fresh. I'm kind of I would say, like, since the summer, I've been trying. I got a new hairstylist at the same salon, but a different girl does my hair now, and we've been doing this like more warm honey blonde instead of the very like platinum white, which I used to love, which I still do love. And sometimes I look at myself and think like, this is really weird, because we kind of do low lights at the same time, keep a bit of that warmth, because maybe some of you don't know this because you've only ever watched me as a blonde, but I'm a natural born redhead with like auburny hair, have done all my life. The first time I dyed my hair permanently was like when I bleached it the summer before we moved to Amsterdam. The summer we moved to Amsterdam. So I moved here as blonde, and all my friends here have only ever known me as a blonde. So when they see photos of me, especially like me and Tom, like when we were younger, they're like, what? Which is really funny because I never thought in my life I would dye my hair. But yeah, now I can't imagine going. Well, sometimes, especially when Cowboy Copper was in, I was like, oh, I really miss, like, should I go back to my ginger roots? And I thought like maybe in the future, like in the next couple of years, like when we start thinking about children and I'm like trying to get pregnant and stuff, maybe then I would just go back to my roots of being a redhead, because it would be like less upkeep. And there's also this woman who lives across the road who I'm obsessed with. Don't know her, only spoken to her in passing, but she has I don't even think she's a natural redhead. She has the most gorgeous ginger hair, and every time I see her I'm like, wow, maybe I miss it. But I don't know, something about me feels like blonde suits me a lot, which is it's really funny that ginger and like redheads is back in, because all my life I was bullied for it. I never liked it. I always wanted to dye my hair. My mum never let me. It was only when I was a teenager and I started modeling that I would get my hair sort of like not even dyed, just like they would like, I forgot what they call it, like put colour gloss and stuff, so it'd be like more red. So I went through stages of having like that almost unnatural red colour, but I never touched a lick of bleach on it. I was not that rebellious as a teenager to go against my mum. And then when one day I was like to Tom, I think I want to just completely change my hair. And I went to the hairdressers, I got it all bleached, and then I had it like peach. I wanted it peachy, like that very unnatural peach pink colour. So I did that for a while, then realised the upkeep, and now I've slowly become more natural. But I think it really suits me because I also have dark eyebrows, which I've always had, even when I had red hair. And as a baby, I was bright ginger, and then I kind of went more auburn as a teen. Did you ask my hair life story? Probably not, but I just think it's funny to think about myself not as a blonde. And I think I would regret going back because this took so much work and it's very expensive. And now it's like quite a low level of upkeep. But I think if I went back to red is also really hard to get out of your hair. So I'd obviously have to dye it red and then let my natural roots grow back in. And then if I ever wanted to go back to blonde, it would be a big hoo-ha. My hair was so unhealthy when I first started doing like scalp bleach, which I don't obviously fuck with anymore. So I feel like I've been on a journey of my hair in the last 3 and 4 years, and I'm not really prepared to start that journey over again. But I became very tempted, and I still am a little bit tempted to do that strawberryish blonde. But I think I'm going to wait until like after we get married and our wedding and stuff, because I think I want my hair to look like me, like how I've looked for a while in my wedding pics, not look like something I did just to try it out kind of thing. So yeah, maybe next autumn we will put some orange back in it. Anyway, that's all to say. Got my hair done while I was at the hairdressers. Did some reading. So I've read actually quite far, because I read last night as well, the first 90 pages. There's something about reading, this isn't even a short book, this is 250 pages, but after coming off the back of reading a 450 page book, I'm like, whoa, I'm almost at the 100 page mark, so I'm almost halfway. So yeah, I explained what this was about previously, but I'm not sure. I think I like it. It's a bit all over the place tone wise. So we follow our main character, who is a field wife at this elite marriage agency, which is essentially brides and groom for hire in Korea, and they get sent on these assignments, and she is assigned back with her husband she was contracted to previously, which is a really good sign for the agency that they choose to ask to have the same wife again. And they live these very unconventional, obviously, marriages. A lot in here about sex and desire so far, particularly like Korean cultural understandings of desirability and Korean men, which I find really fascinating. But something about the tone I'm finding quite uneven. Feels like it wants to be this fast-paced book, and that's kind of what it's framed as, but then it has these kind of randomly philosophical musings from our character's interior that they're not bad per se, but they don't necessarily make sense in the overall storyline that I'm expecting. There's a lot of serious things being covered in here, it's particularly related to DV and the danger that the field wives are put in when they're obviously quote unquote married off to these men who for some reason can't follow conventional marriage, which would be red flags for most people. So tonally, I'm a bit confused or conflicted, but I am enjoying the reading experience so far. And it also, again, as I always say, like, part of that can always be the translation that can misinterpret or just be not click with me as an English language reader, which is totally obviously on me. But yeah, I haven't fully formed my thoughts on it yet, but I think I'll probably finish it in the next few days. I just took these 2 bonnets off the blocking mats, and there's 1 more bonnet to go. I've got to tie the ribbons on and weave in the ends, but that will be my final adult bonnets of the year made. This one is so cute, and I'm about to start. I've got 2 baby bonnets to do, and this person ordered matching red and pink stripy one for her little baby, which I think is going to be adorable. So that's a good job done. And then last night you saw I painted some gift tags. This one's a bit of a botched job because I wrapped up some of the hand knit presents I've been making in the last few months for friends. Bought this lovely wrapping paper in the Flying Tiger and also this stripy one. So those are going to our friends tonight. They have just moved house, so we're going to go over for a little toast, a little celebration. No one else is there except me and Tom and them 2, but it will be nice. And then I also want to show you one other thing, is that my friend that I went to see Wicked with, which by the way, I didn't really rate it. I just liked the 2 good songs and didn't do much for me. Thought it was very awkward in places. And I definitely didn't cry. And I was sat next to 2 people who wouldn't stop talking the whole way through. So can we just talk about how people have become so selfish and even more hyper individualistic post the COVID lockdowns that we lived through? People do not know how to behave in public, and that includes in cinemas. Anyway, my friend I went to watch it with, who's the friend I knit with every other week, she sewed me this project bag, which, if you know anything about knitting, project bags are such a lovely thing to have, and they're also really expensive to buy. So she made this and embroidered a little H on the bottom, and it's so good because it opens so nice and wide, so I think it will even fit like a sweater in here. She just made it from a tea towel, which is so cool. And one of my 2025 intentions is to dust off my sewing machine and get back, relearn how to sew, because I did sew all through school. My granny was a great seamstress, and then I did textiles all the way up till my A level, so I can sew, but I've always just let it go. So I want to pick it back up to do things like this that's so simple, and make such lovely presents. So that's a roundup of my week. Just 1 week to go until we're away, and hopefully 1 more vlog of me here packing, getting ready. I'm going to show you what I'm going to, reading wise, I'm taking on holiday. I'm not sure I'm going to vlog my trip. Perhaps I'll put some clips up, probably on my Patreon, but otherwise I will see you in the next one. Bye.